for this team just to be reminded of how much power, you've lost a couple guys, but to remind you how much power is still in this lineup.
Yeah, well, I think it's that's kind of who this team is. That's when the guys are themselves. That's kind of what they do. It's like if you had a different lineup that was maybe built a different way, and yeah, it's nice to hit home runs, but it's better to see guys be themselves, and I think that's kind of what facilitates success is like if you can manifest who you are, and I think that's kind of who some of these guys are, is they're gap home run hitters, some of them, and so it's just nice to see the guys kind of be themselves and like feel that again and see that again.
It's nice to see Kelnick. He lost 2 leadoff guys. Kelnick steps in there, playing center field, plays a Michael. Not too big of a drop off there.
Yeah, well, I like watching Kelly play a lot. I like the personality. I like how hard he plays. He sells out. I think he was a great addition. He's got a really good arm. I think he's an exciting young player. I'm really glad he's here.
Charlie, with Kelnick, this is a guy who was a top prospect. It hadn't worked out for him. How cool is it to just see a guy kind of coming into his own and finding success like that?
Yeah, well, I didn't know anything about his past, so I really didn't know anything about where he was drafted or that the prospect status or anything like that. I think it's just if that's true, it's like some guys just take some time. Some guys maybe need to change the scenery. Some guys maybe I don't know, but all I know is that he's a great fit for the team. Like I said, I like the personality. I like the there's a fire there. There's an eagerness there, and a willingness to to put his body on the line, play hard, and you see the upside and you see that kind of like where he could go, and that's exciting too. So it's fun to be in there with him and watch him and get more at bats and play in the field.
How about you? The first inning has given you some trouble this year, but once again you settled in after the first inning and give them a good start. How good did it feel to do that?
Yeah, well, like today, it's like I felt like my first inning might have been one of my better innings the way I threw the ball. The walk to Belau, it's like the pitches I was making, it's like, man, it's like I look back and I'm like, man, that's kind of what I was trying to do. I just didn't, maybe I wasn't as aggressive as I should have been, but like I went out there and I felt like it was a decent inning. I just like the double on the breaking ball down and in. It was just a bad pitch, but like all in all, I think today I threw the ball differently, certainly than my last outing. Not just in terms of results, but I think more like intent, mix. I think I was more aggressive with the fastball. I was more aggressive how I threw the fastball, probably more aggressive how I was throwing my breaking ball. It was like I bounced a couple, but I threw them. It's like I spun them and I threw them. So I think, looking back at that DC start, those 2 DC starts that I made, like, it's like there's some good pitches there. Like if you're saying like location wise, and you don't want to be nitpicky. It's like, man, there's some good pitches there, but the intent there I think was different, and today was a little bit different. My stuff played up a little bit today.
You want to pitch well against anyone, but you got some old friends there in that lineup. But how satisfying is it to have a day like that against former teams?
Yeah, I don't know. I struggle with that, because when you're in the clubhouse with guys that are trying to establish themselves and this is a tough thing to do. Like, it's a tough thing. There's somebody knocking on the door all the time trying to take your job. So like when you see the guys, you get to know them, you get to know their families, you get to know their wives, their girlfriends, their fiancés, and their children, their parents, and then you're in there on a day-to-day basis with those guys, and then you got to go try to get them out while they're trying to establish themselves in the big leagues. It's like, it's the worst. It's like, so when I look in there, I'm like, man, I know that guy. I know. We went through some things together. We spent time together, and then it's like, man, I'm trying to get him out. I don't like it. I really don't. But at the same time, I think we owe each other that effort and that respect to just give our best to each other. And like if you get beat, you tip your hat, and if you don't, if you beat them, it's like a little nod there. But it's good to see them. It's good to see people. It's like no matter who it is, whether it's a team that I pitched or played on, or whether it's guys I played with, it's always been tough for me.
Probably obvious question, but what does it mean for this lineup when Austin Riley, only hits 3 home runs all year until the last 2 days, and now he's looking a lot more like himself? What does that mean?
Yeah. So like, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's great, right? It's like you want your guys to get going and be who they are. But for Austin, like seeing him every day and knowing how good of a human being he is and how much he puts in and how much he cares, that's why I want it for him. I don't want it because the team is better with him. Like that's just a byproduct of him going out and doing what he's capable of doing. But I want that for him. I want to see him be in a good spot and for him to know that he's doing what he's capable of doing, so we can feel good about it, because I know how much he cares about it. So it's like, does it help the team? Obviously, right? He signed a nice deal. I'm sure he feels some pressure to uphold his end of the bargain, but like that goes without saying. It's Austin Riley. I mean, he's one of the better humans that I've met in baseball. So that is what it is. Like I'm a fan.
Charlie, kind of going back to, I know that you have some familiarity against this team, but in terms of what you touched on in kind of mixing up your pitches and having that aggressive nature, is that something you're entering with that game plan, or is that something in that first inning you're kind of just adjusting on the spot and feeling that more so in that point?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like when you get to the big leagues, you're figuring out what works for you, and you might be doing that, which I was doing probably 4, 5, 6, 7 years in my career. I was evolving, I was morphing, I was changing, trying to figure out what was working. Once you figure out what's working, you have to allow yourself to be that. Like you have to acknowledge that that's who you are and let it come out. And I think that for me, it's actually a really simple thing. It's like you let it eat at the top. I throw a lot of breaking balls, and then I mix in my changeup, my cutter, and my two-seamer. Depending on which one of those, like, I would call them my secondary pitches, but like they are my secondary pitches. I would say my primary is my breaking ball, my four-seamer. But it's like at that point, it's like, dude, just go throw. It's not like at this point for me, it's not reinventing the wheel or myself. So that's kind of what it is. And that's a lineup, frankly, that they do. The lefties are kind of like a typical lefty, and the righties somewhat similar. Like their approaches, their zones where I'm trying to attack, they're kind of a good matchup for me if I can make my pitches.